but I want to set the scene right at this immediate moment. Take a look at this. We've got bike cops, we've got the riot police. What they are doing right here at this spot is protecting that parking lot. That is where some of the Trump supporters have parked tonight. They have to get their vehicles out. There were several confrontations, people punching vehicles, people hitting vehicles, people throwing stuff at vehicles. So those police officers are making sure those Trump supporters can get out of that parking lot safely. We're getting a crowd right here, right now, but also on the other side at 1st and 6th. You can see more riot police in position. Right now, we are talking about a splintered group of demonstrators. Amy, what an awesome story. You mentioned the cornfield. I want to demonstrate what made that search overnight so difficult. We're in the cornfield where Ethan and his dog were found. You can see the stalks. They tower over me at 5'10", so you can imagine how hard it was to locate a little boy, a dog on a cold night. Let's start over here where Peter Brown had shot. This car stalled in some of the flooding behind me. They just got a push. We're right in front of Broadway Bar and Pizza across. Of course, Broadway Pizza at the intersection of West River Road and West Broadway. And this is the problem. Under a railroad trestle like this, there is a massive amount of water. This storm came through and came like a blast. Now that person's driving like an idiot.
Fresh out of the courtroom, what these verdicts are.
Yeah, good evening. I just left a stunned courtroom. Mohammed Noor, guilty. 3rd-degree murder. Mohammed Noor, guilty. 2nd-degree manslaughter. Per the request of prosecution, Mohammed Noor was immediately taken into custody. He was handcuffed and escorted out. Again, just trying to catch my breath. We ran down the floor. But Mohammed Noor, a Minnesota police officer, a former officer now, fired after this shooting. After shooting and killing Justine Ruszczyk-Damon in the alley behind her home on July 15, 2017, Mohammed Noor, guilty.
Tonight, Paul Blume has that video. We want to mention that while it does show the young man suffering, it does not depict his final moments.
Well, let me just say that what I saw was just despicable.
Delshia Perry told me she had to watch this video with her own eyes, had to know what truly happened.
Why would they have left my baby on that floor?
Her only son, Hardell Sherrill, was dead at 27, just days after arriving at the Beltrami County Jail.
What do we want justice for?
And the community was outraged, demanding answers.
I've had to relive his death, over and over again.
Delshia, clutching her Bible here for strength during a recent interview, explained she was haunted by a jailhouse phone call from Hardell, where he allegedly told her he was in excruciating pain and would rather die because he couldn't get any help.
He said, "Mama, get a lawyer and have them look at the video cameras because they're mistreating me in here."
Everyone deserves to be treated as a human being.
Delshia hired that lawyer, Zoroslav Liederman, and the pair filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Beltrami County, the corrections staff, and the medical providers responsible for Hardell's care. They describe what happened as a, quote, total system failure after gathering and reviewing the video, Hardell's medical records, and doing their own investigation.
I've seen a lot of things happen, in jails and DOC prisons, and this is by far the most egregious and disturbing case that I've seen.
Hardell arrived here at the jail in Bemidji on August 24th, 2018. At about 5:30 p.m., the security cameras capture Hardell upon booking. He appears to be healthy and in good spirits.
That's my son, who you see there. That's Hardell. Always cracking jokes. He loved life.
Delshia concedes her son wasn't perfect. He had several criminal convictions over the years on his record, including child endangerment, domestic abuse, and theft. In fact, he was moved to Beltrami County after his arrest as a felon with a gun. But she insists the father of three was there to do his time and pay his debt to society.
The ultimate justice would be to bring my son back, and obviously that's not going to happen.
The suit details a rapid medical deterioration, with Hardell first complaining of a headache, then chest and back pains, and eventually a loss of feeling in his lower extremities. He would eventually fall out of his bunk and a wheelchair before jail and medical staff transferred him to the nearby emergency room and eventually a Fargo hospital so he could have an MRI. Liederman reports the tests were inconclusive, and Hardell was sent back to jail with a primary diagnosis of malingering and weakness. According to his court filing, correctional staff was instructed that if Hardell displayed signs of stroke or paralysis or loss of bladder control, to get him back to the ER immediately, but that never happened.
I've read all the records and I've seen the video that was given to us. They just thought he was faking, and so it appears they thought we're going to just let him have his thing, let him have his episode, and that's how he died.
Officially, the Ramsey County Medical Examiner ruled Hardell died of pneumonia on September 2nd, just over a week after he was booked into the jail. But Dalshia's legal team ran their own postmortem tests and found Hardell was suffering from Guillain-Barré syndrome. Mayo describes it as a rare disorder where a body's immune system attacks the nerves, eventually leaving a patient paralyzed. That's what Dalshia sees happening in the video, as jail staff appear to ignore Hardell's symptoms, at times leaving him hanging off his cot, and sometimes face down on the floor for hours, according to the timestamps. With proper medical care, Lederman insists the condition is treatable and is not a death sentence.
It's like somebody putting a pillow over your mouth and you're slowly losing your ability to breathe, and that's how he spent his last days.
The Department of Corrections, which reviews all of the state's in-custody deaths, eventually determined there were no violations committed by Beltrami County in Hardell's death, something Dalshia just couldn't believe, especially after she learned he was the third person to die in the Bemidji jail over the last few years. So she's committed to taking her fight for justice to the courts, attempting to hold the jail accountable for not recognizing the life and death situation, and the medical professionals for not doing further testing to properly diagnose her dying son.
Jobs need to be lost. Criminal charges need to be filed. And I sure hope that they know how to ask God for forgiveness.
Paul Blume, Fox 9.
She had a tenacious personality. She wasn't going to give up. You know, she wanted to know where her son was.
Amy Cunningham flips through a precious piece of family history, and in many ways, a small piece of American history.
And when you look through these, it's almost haunting because they're looking at you like, don't forget me, and we didn't.
75 years ago, Amy's great-grandmother, Amelia Halverson, began meticulously organizing this photo scrapbook in an effort to track the 80 missing sailors on board the USS Grayback.
And if you read the writing, it tells you the age, the weight, the hair color, the eye color, which is really interesting.
One of those missing was Amelia's son Earl of Marshall, whose surviving sister is now 90 years old, still living in their southwestern Minnesota hometown.
He said President Roosevelt asked for volunteers for the submarine. And he said, I thought it was my duty.
In March of 1944, at the height of World War II, the Grayback disappeared. In a different era, the ominous news was delivered by telegram. The family still has this copy. The women, meanwhile, on the home front, including Amelia and other mothers and wives across the country, kept vigil, writing to one another, sharing photographs, and praying for a miracle.
There's a woman who mentions that she's pregnant, and her husband is now missing in action, and she doesn't know what her future holds.
On Veterans Day, it was announced the Grayback had finally been found off the coast of Okinawa. The Lost 52 project that tracks missing U.S. subs, making the discovery in about 1,400 feet of water. According to reports, it's believed the vessel was sunk by a Japanese bomb.
They found him. That's how I feel. They found him.
With her great-aunt's blessing, Amy, a metro area artist who painted this life-size portrait of Earl, is now on a mission that has gained momentum with this week's incredible news. She's committed to tracking down the names, the faces, and stories of those in her great-grandmother's book, all those young men who presumably died together, fighting for freedom.
It gives you chills. It makes you really understand the depth, and then also understand the importance of this, where this could have ended up anywhere. It could have ended up in an antique store. It could have ended up in the garbage. But we found it, and we made sure to save it and to commemorate it. And we want to make sure other people get to experience this with us.
And it was really eye-opening to see how the war and the Grayback mystery rippled across families and generations. For example, Earl's brother joined the military shortly after the sub disappeared, going off to battle himself in an effort to find Earl. Of course, that brother, Amy's late grandfather, now she's involved in this, her kids. It just goes on and on.
It's interesting to note there, I mean, a bygone era for sure, but the way that they kept track of things, kind of like an older version of today's social media in some ways, and to bring it all full circle was amazing.
It was really neat. It was a piece of history for me just to see. And you're right, I kind of thought I was watching like the precursor of social media and Facebook and that book that the great-grandmother had designed with the photos and the names and the stats. And then, as you mentioned, a bygone era of communication.